Hi, everybody. Welcome to Reserve Seating. This one, according to my calendar, is the first of 2025.
Hey, we're doing
There,
it.
we're doing it.
We're doing it again.
We're doing it again, and we're doing it again with an episode from 20. It was our last episode of 2023, and I think it was like a fun way to do kind of like a button on the year. We
Hmm.
missed a week, but that's okay. We still wanted to sneak in a sneak and stay.
A sneak and stay. What is a sneak and stay, Adam?
A sneak and stay is when a studio would be trying to get word of mouth for an upcoming release. So they would do a sneak preview of that movie about a week or 2 weeks before it's released, and they would piggyback it with a certified hit from the studio that was already in theaters at the current time. So last year we did House Guest, Rob's one favorite movie of 1995. I mean, he wouldn't own that if it wasn't his favorite movie in
Adam sent me this, and
1995.
it's in the background of every single reserve seating, my friends.
But it's getting more hidden off frame.
Oh yeah. Well, hold on. I gotta move that.
Yeah, move that brutalist intermission shot. So I was house guest and then the Santa Claus, which
Hmm?
was like Disney's hit of the holiday season in 94. This time we're doing a sneak preview from the last weekend of September of 1996. It was in the week before That Thing You Do opened in wide release, and they were trying to get word of mouth for it, and they double featured it with Independence Day, which of course was a huge hit in the summer. So it would probably be weird to watch Independence Day at the end of September, but probably even weirder to watch it around New Year's Eve.
Imagine Independence Day opens in July and it's still playing in September.
Yeah, that doesn't happen
Do
anymore.
that anymore? Yeah.
So I didn't go to this double feature. I remember it happening. Our own Patrick Bromley did go to this double feature,
Of course.
and he's told me many times, kind of what a magical experience this was for him. Because That Thing You Do, to borrow one of his phrases, was like an exploding heart movie for him, and he liked it so much that I think he went to this double feature twice, if I'm not mistaken. But the first time, because it was on like back-to-back days
Mhm.
on like a Saturday and Sunday. But the first time he left and didn't stay for Independence Day because he was so overcome by joy from watching That Thing You Do for the first time. If you went to the sneak preview of That Thing You Do, would you have pulled a Patrick Bromley and left after the movie's over, or would you have stayed for Independence Day?
Had I already seen Independence Day at that point?
Yeah, maybe multiple times.
If I had already seen Independence Day multiple times, knowing myself, and if you're asking me if I'm the age I am right now and I'm doing this double feature, knowing that I'd already seen Independence Day and I just saw one of still, and we'll talk about this, but one of my favorite movies, a movie that is like Patrick, an exploding heart movie for me, one of the most important movies in my life. Um,
Mhm.
I probably would have wanted to hold on to that, and I probably would have left if I had already seen Independence Day so many
Yeah.
times. I probably. What about you?
I think I would have stayed for part of Independence Day and seen like how I was doing, and then if I felt like what you were describing, I would have left.
You're
Because
better with that stuff than I am because I know myself to know like I'm not even going to sit down and try with a whole other 2 hour movie. I know
yeah,
go home.
but I have had that before. Like I remember the first time I saw like Silver Linings Playbook, I was gonna go see Life of Pi afterwards because I was just like trying to cram in like end of year stuff. But I was so like wow about like Silver Linings Playbook in 2012 that I left and everything. So that's a thing. I didn't watch these two in a true double feature this time. I watched That Thing You Do on Friday night, and then I started Independence Day, and I was tired and I stopped it right after the aliens attacked. So
Okay.
like before it got to July 3rd, I shut it off. And then Saturday morning I watched July 3rd, and then Saturday night I watched July 4th. And
Wow.
it was a cool way to do it because like it really underlines what a great three act structure
You,
Independence
you
Day
turned it
has.
into a Netflix original series, is what you did.
Yeah. I think my favorite act is the third act now. I just think that it's like
Sure.
so well done. It's like one of the best examples of a movie delivering
Yeah, yeah.
like a conclusion. But yeah, let's go backwards. Let's talk about that thing you do. So, Rob, you said that this is one of your exploding heart movies.
Hold on, hold on.
Yeah.
Now I'm ready to talk about that thing.
There we go. All right, there you go.
Ready to go. All right, so we've talked about that thing you do a lot, and it remains just one of the most important movies in my life. I saw it at just the right time. It was around the time I was really getting into music. I'm a drummer because of this movie. This movie inspired me to take up the drums, um, and it remains again. I use this as an example on the podcast just a couple weeks back, where a movie takes a risk, and the risk is the song because
Mm,
the song doesn't work, nothing works in the movie.
that's
Um,
true. Yeah.
the movie is incredibly well put together. I think this is one of the best examples of a movie, an example of how powerful editing is, because of course there is the director's cut with the Tom Hanks director's cut of this movie, and it is good,
Mm,
not great. It's shaggy and it changes the momentum in some of the places. I didn't rewatch the whole thing, but I watched some of the deleted scenes or some of the scenes that go in the director's cut, and
mm,
like they do a lot to inform the character and they do a lot to inform like other parts of the plot. But the movie as it is just this perfect piece of cinema. It's just this perfect like it moves the way kind of like a 50s pop song or a 60s pop song would, like it moves with
yeah.
the same sort of energy. The characters are so clearly defined, the setups and payoffs, all those things, just structurally and thematically and character wise, it remains just one of my favorite movies. It remains just a complete joy um, to watch all the time. This was a big, we were talking about Airheads being like a big after school Comedy Central movie. This was a
Mm,
huge VH1 after school movie for me. This was on VH1 all the time after school when
mm.
I was a kid. Um, no, it's just it remains just one of the most important movies in my whole life.
I had three things that were running through my mind. Three, maybe four. I'm gonna try to remember the list.
It's at least three,
It's
if
at
not
least three.
four items long.
First one, Steve Zahn.
Right.
Like nobody's funnier than Steve Zahn at this time period. Like everything he says, like it's like you Oneaters are gonna make me a lot of money. We're the Onetters.
Still, whenever anybody, I'm from Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I'm from the other side of Pennsylvania, though. I'm from the Philadelphia area. So,
Yeah.
but whenever, ever anybody mentions anything about being from Pennsylvania in my life, either out loud or in my head, I go, "You got to be quick. You got to be quick with me. I'm from Erie, PA."
Another thing is, this I got in my head that this movie is like fireworks. Like that's how it is. It's just like these bursts of like fun and happiness and joy. And that's maybe why the director's cut doesn't work as well, is because like the fireworks can go on too long sometimes.
Right? Yeah.
Like you get your fix. The third thing is I remember especially at the time the movie was sort of like kissed off as like a three-star movie out of four, and it was just like, oh, it's slight, it's this
Mm.
like romp and stuff like that. And we see what movies stand the test of time, and we see which movies don't. But the thing that I think is so amazing about it is you could easily think like it's this slight directorial debut by Tom Hanks, and he has like a small role. But just like when I was going through the credits, I'm like, he co-wrote some of the songs. Like he was like really in this. Like this was so much like and he wrote the movie. I mean, like it's so much like a passion project of his. I think it's like a key to his boomer idealism in the same way that Apollo 13 and Forrest Gump are, but it's not talked about enough. It's like if you want to understand Tom Hanks, that thing you do is like important text in figuring this guy out. Do you have a favorite Wonder song that's not that thing you do?
Favorite Wonder song that's not that thing you do. Okay, that's a good question. Let me go to the track listing here. All right, so let's run down the list here. So the Wonders obviously have that thing you do. The Wonders have Little Wild One.
Yeah.
They have Dance with Me Tonight, All My Only Dreams, and then my pick, I think, for my top song that's not that thing you do is actually also called That Thing You Do. It's the end credits song. I Need
Hmm.
which in parentheses is That Thing You Do. It's probably the song that sounds the least like the other songs. It actually for me, has more of a 90s sound to it. But that is probably my favorite Wonder song that's not That Thing You Do.
I think mine is wasn't the ballad All My Only Dreams?
All My Only Dreams, yeah.
And that's the B-side that Jimmy wants to do so bad, right?
The B-side he wants to do over, yeah, because he only got one take.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite of the other ones.
I mean, there's another example. Like all the songs in this, it's not like there's just the one song that's great. All the songs in this movie are
They're
great.
really good. Yeah, it's like the Smile 2 of its day.
This is just to me just like it's just like a top to bottom. Like it does everything correctly. And then that's again in the deleted scene stuff. The director's cut really proves how savvy Hanks was and his team were about like putting together just the right cocktail of scenes to make those fireworks that you talked about.
Yeah. And a really good small role by the cinematographer of Strange Darling. One of the presents I got for Hanukkah Christmas was a shirt that says professional movie critic,
Hey,
but I'm not one, so joke's
there
on
you
all of
are.
you.
Come
No,
on.
I'm not. I'm just a regular guy
Just a
from the
regular guy from the Midwest.
Midwest who loves movies.
Loves movies. Wears White Sox hat backwards.
Where's my White Sox hat backwards?
Yeah.
That's the direction this franchise is going. We're not looking forward. I have a theory that they're deliberately making their roster god awful to drive attendance down because if they don't hit a certain attendance marker, I'm guessing that they can get out of their stadium lease and they can move the team. That's my theory.
You should make a movie like that.
Should I call it minor league? All right, and then Independence Day, what can you say about Independence Day?
What can you say?
I this is another movie that I think at the time was sort of dismissed, at least by critics, as like it's old-fashioned. It's just like a reheating of like 1950s sci-fi alien invasion movies, but it's like so well done and it's fun. And it's a great summer blockbuster, which is not easy to do.
I think this movie is great. I think this movie is, I think Roland Emmerich's best film. Will you agree on that?
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to say something that I think is surprising and perhaps sacrilegious.
Okay.
I think this is my favorite Jeff Goldblum performance.
More than The Fly?
I understand The Fly. I understand the argument to be made for Jurassic Park because he's so much of that in that movie.
Mhm.
I don't know. Maybe I don't. Maybe I need to rewatch The Fly.
For me, it's The Fly.
Yeah, no, no. And The Fly is like great, but I think that like maybe I'll put it this way. When I think of Jeff Goldblum, I think of Independence Day. That might be it. And that has everything to do with the fact that I was 10 years old in 1996. I understand.
Sure.
But I've watched Jurassic Park, I've watched The Fly, I've watched these movies 1,000 times. I think that there's lots of great variations on Jeff Goldblum that he's done, and it's perfectly reasonable to say that the Fly is a deeper character. It's more thoughtful. He's got more to play with in that movie, and I totally understand that.
Mhm.
But I think when I think of Jeff Goldblum, I think of Independence Day, and that's probably what I mean most. But what that goes to show for me, or goes to say as part of this, is I think that the strength of this movie is in the direction, is in the effects, is in the pacing. All that stuff is iconic, but it's the casting for me. I think this
Yeah.
movie is wall to wall bangers of like people you are just always happy to see. That, with the exception of Will Smith, although at the time this is what helped contribute to that, it's the old Spielberg rule of like the shark is the star. Just let me
Mhm.
get good actors for the parts, for the
Yeah.
human parts. And I think Independence Day, again, Will is on the rise at that point, but he's definitely not the Will Smith that he would be after Men in Black.
Yeah, the trio of the three leads was something that I was paying a lot of more attention to this time than I do on some viewings of Independence Day, but it was I don't know why, but like in 96 I was like kind of wishy-washy on Bill Pullman on in this movie, but now I'm like totally into what he's doing.
I just wasn't as aware of his work, obviously, at the time. Like I didn't know Bill Pullman from anybody,
Yeah.
anybody else at the time. Now that I've seen more Bill Pullman and understand more of especially who his 90s persona was,
Yeah.
this
And I
is a
just like him. Yeah, and he nails the big speech.
oh yeah.
I mean, it's pretty phenomenal.
So for a period of time when I first got a cell phone, when I first had my own phone, kids back in the day, um,
Hmm.
I made my outgoing voicemail message the speech. Now, the only person who ever really called me was my grandmother, and she would wait through the
Oh.
whole speech. And every time I finally would hear the message that she was leaving for me, there was always an exasperated sigh that began it. She was like, oh, I forget what I was going to tell you at this point, Robert. I don't remember anymore what I was going
So
to tell
was it Pullman doing the speech or you doing
you. Oh,
Pullman's
it's
speech?
Pullman doing the speech from the movie.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, no, I didn't recite the whole speech.
Yeah.
But no, I used, and that was a great for today. We joke a lot about how like people don't call each other anymore and all that, and how
No.
like, getting a phone call is like kind of like frustrating, and you're kind of like, ugh. If you really want to make sure people don't leave you that voicemail, make your outgoing message the speech from Independence Day.
I don't know if this is like true of modern movies or I'm conflating it because I watch so many like movies from 30 years ago or older. But I do find it funny that like in every movie where there's like an answering machine or a voicemail, it's always like a couple and they do it in unison and it's like real cutesy and stuff like that. It's like if you're calling for Greg or Gail and stuff like that.
Are Greg and Gail still together, Adam? In your head, in
Yeah.
your imagination, that '90s couple on the answering machine, are they still together?
Yeah, I think that they had like an awkward patch
Okay.
during the late seasons of Mad About You. Like it was like their eyes wide shut where they had to have tough conversations. Yeah, and that's also fun. Like Independence Day, as you mentioned, like Will Smith was Will Smith, but he wasn't like Will Smith
Wasn't
yet.
Will
It's
Smith.
like this was the movie that made him into a superstar from just a star. And it's cool to see that because there's this great moment at the beginning of the movie where Vivica Fox says, you know, you're not as charming as you think you are, sir. And he says, like, with 100% charisma and confidence, he's like, yes, I am. And like everybody in the theater was just like, he really is.
Yes,
Like
he.
in this moment, fuck yeah, like this is the guy. And I just think it's like this cool like metatextual thing that like is only a happy accident. Like it could only be a happy accident.
I
But
will.
yeah, this movie's still awesome. Yeah, and also, you know, hindsight's 2020, but like critics, they I think a lot of them got it wrong in 96 when they were like dumping on this movie because I don't care about plot holes. This movie made me and my cousins drive out of the theater around 4th of Ju on 4th of July, 1996 blasting Here in My Bedroom by Goldfinger and screaming to passing by cars, we defeated the aliens.
All right. So before we wrap, would you suggest watching these movies in this order? Would this be the order you go in? That thing you do first, and then Independence Day?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Okay.
think so. And I would make a suggestion. Do what I did. I put together like a little trailer block of my for
Mhm.
myself of movies coming out in 96. And I watched the full episodes of Siskel and Ebert where they reviewed That Thing You Do and Independence Day. It was
Nice.
a long evening, but it was very, very nostalgic and fun. So next week we will be back with our annual Lumps of Coal episode. Skitch, do you know what your lump of coal is?
Not yet. I'm gonna decide as I rewatch a couple things in the next day or two,
Okay.
and then I'll get back to you on that.
Mine is going to be Robert Zemeckis is Here, which is going to be on, I think, PVOD in the next week or so. So if you're out there and you want to watch it before our episode, go out and rent it. And if you don't like it, hey, that was up to you. It wasn't up to me.
All right.
All right. Until next time.
I'm Spartacus.